Good evening, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Would you please stand for the national anthem, which will be sung by our Safford High School choirs.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Great job, guys. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. See you guys. Next time. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Hey, Zane, thanks. Thank you. You guys are great. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you, choir. We appreciate that. Again, we welcome you tonight. As a matter of information, first of all, I want to let you know that this meeting is also being recorded by Safford Bulldog News Network and will be available on their YouTube channel by Wednesday. So if you have family or friends that are hoping they couldn't be here, hoping to be able to watch this, they'll be able to do so. At this time, I would like to recognize those people in groups who are seated on the stage with us tonight. Some of them might have had stage fright. They chose to sit out there amongst you, so we're still going to introduce them. And if you're here, would you please stand and remain standing as you are recognized? First of all, we have with us tonight, and some are actually, like I said, being excused, but we'll move on with that. We have Safford School District Governing Board, the City of Safford City Council, Police Department, and staff, Graham County Board of Supervisors, Graham County School Superintendent, Graham County Sheriff's Office and the Graham County Sheriff, Greenlee County Sheriff, Representative Drew John, Judge Michael Peterson, Safford Schools, administration, staff, and students, Gila Valley Ministerial Association, Freeport McMoran, Eastern Arizona College, superintendents and representatives of Thatcher Schools, Pima Schools, Fort Thomas Schools, Solomon Schools, and GIFT, the Gila Institute for Technology, Graham County Chamber of Commerce, Graham County Substance Abuse Coalition, Boys and Girls Club of the Gila Valley, local radio stations and news outlets, Arizona Community Foundation of the Gila Valley, ASART Coaching, and other religious and community leaders who I may not have mentioned. And finally, you who are here tonight, will you please stand as well? Thank you so much for choosing to be here, and a big round of applause for everyone here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I know that there are 1 billion people going hungry today. I know that this year 1 million people will commit suicide. It's 1 every 40 seconds. I know today there are 120 million slaves, and I've met sex slaves, and I've seen the top of the pyramid as far as business and met the billionaires. I've met bankers, and I've also met orphans. We're all looking for something. We're all looking for hope. Hope you can't just have just because you were born with hope. No, we're born with pain. We're born and live through difficulties. And in our life, my parents always taught me that even though we don't know why I was born this way, that we have a choice. either to be angry for what we don't have or be thankful for what we do have. The power of that choice was the first thing that I had to overcome and decide for myself.
Why would the farmer put the plow in the ground in the spring if he couldn't see the vision of the harvest when the summer is finished? Is it possible to see the finished harvest? And the answer is yes. We do that simply by faith. Key phrase, faith is the ability to see things that don't yet exist. And that's how things exist. How did this hotel get here? Someone saw it while the property was vacant. You say, well, is it possible to see this hotel when it isn't here? And the answer is yes, of course. If somebody cannot see it when it is not here, then it will never be here. So it's possible to see things that don't yet exist.
I met a high school teacher who one day changed my life. I was waiting on another student, and when he came in, he said to me, "Young man, go to the board and write what I'm about to tell you." And I said, I can't do that, sir. He said, "Why not?" I said, "I'm not one of your students." He said, "It doesn't matter. Follow my directions now." I said, "I can't do that, sir." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because I'm educable mentally retarded." And he came from behind his desk and he looked at me. He said, "Don't ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality."
Just do what you love, Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about anything. Just be kind to everyone and do what you love. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, as long as you're being kind to people and you're doing what you love, only good things can come of it.
I think the greatest of people in society carved niches that represented the unique expression of their combinations of talents. I'm privileged and I don't take a day for granted.
I hope you are inspired to know that if I can dream big, then so can you. There are no walls. Find your peace, and you'll make your walls doors.
So once again, thank you and good evening. We appreciate you being here. My name is Ken Van Winkle, and it is my honor and my privilege to be fortunate enough to serve here as the superintendent for the Safford School District. Before beginning tonight's program, I'd like to announce to you the entire agenda so you know what to expect. As I do so, we also want you to know that we realize we are not experts in the field of psychology or sociology. So the meeting tonight might not be what you were expecting. It may be a little bit different. But we ask that you listen to the messages with your heart and with your mind. And we hope that at the end of this meeting, you'll be able to feel that this has been a beneficial 90 minutes of your time. So following is the agenda. I will take just a few minutes and share some thoughts with you. Then we'll hear from Chief Joe Brugman of the Safford Police Department and from Mr. A.J. Taylor, who's Director of Instructional Services. Then we'll hear from a great young lady, one of our students at Safford Middle School, Jasmine Crisp. Jasmine will be followed by Mr. Clay Emery, Principal of Safford Middle School. Then we'll be favored by a song from the SUSD music teachers. Once they have concluded, we'll hear from Mr. Lance Fight, who is a teacher as well as a parent here in the Safford schools. We will then be privileged to hear from Reverend Sherry Brady, who is the chair of the Gila Valley Ministerial Association. We will then hear from Mrs. Tori Lightsky, principal at Safford High School, and we will conclude by hearing from three wonderful young people from Safford High School. I feel it a privilege to know these young people. We'll hear from Aaliyah Armijo, Lazaro Lombillo, and Chris Lujan, who are just wonderful kids, and we're excited to hear from them. Yeah, let's give it up for them. That should calm their nerves, right? Or make them more nervous. So again, appreciate those on the program. I look forward to hearing from them. If you think back almost a year ago, October 8th, 2016, this community was hit with a crazy, devastating hailstorm and flood. It will not be forgotten for those of us who were here. After that terrible destruction of the flooding and the damage, something amazing happened, didn't it? This community came together and helped each other. There was no division. There was no segregation. At that time, we were one. People were serving each other, helping each other, offering time and materials and effort to make things better for one another. There was truly what I would call a coming together to make a difference. Neighboring communities came together and helped us. And now, here we are, almost a year later, and once again we face adversity and challenges. Many of our brothers and sisters of this community are in turmoil. They're hurting, they're suffering, and they're in need of help. We've been faced with serious tragedies, and we don't always understand why these things happen. There's not just one issue that we're faced with. So tonight, our desire is for all of us to come together in hope, faith, love, and service, to have hope for a better future and for healing, to have faith that it will happen and that each of us will be part of it happening, to have increased love and caring for one another, and to have a desire and commitment to serve each other. Simply doing nothing is not an option. A couple of months ago, a good friend of mine referred me to an inspirational story about an NFL football player by the name of Deuce Latouille, and some of you may know him. The title of the story is Tbollit NFL. Now, Deuce was a good football player and he was a good husband, but he wanted to be better. And he was introduced to a man named Steve Hardison, who is a personal life coach. Through working together with Steve, Deuce Latouille was inspired to be and do his best, and he created his own personal statement of Tbollit NFL, the best offensive lineman in the National Football League. He began to believe it, and because of it, he became it through hard work, commitment, and dedication. We at Safford Schools have gotten together in the last few months and have created our own statement, and we're working toward it, and we know we're not there yet, but we have created ours as Tbsdia, the best school district in Arizona. We are committed, dedicated, and enthusiastic to make this happen. We have good people here working in the schools, people who really do love and care for your kids, people who want to be and who want to do their best. But we know, and we, believe it or not, we realize we cannot be the best without all of us coming together, working together, and avoiding criticism of one another or blaming one another. We need you. So with every choice comes a consequence, and we know that. Many times the choice will not only affect the person making the decision, but will affect the lives of many others. Making right choices and avoiding destructive decisions is a necessary skill for each one of us to acquire and develop. We need faith. People are hurting, and I invite every person here to turn to a greater power, whatever you call your greater power. For me and for many of you here tonight, we refer to that as God. It may be something else that you call it, but whatever that is, will you please call upon that power to hold to the good and to bless others. We need prayer. One of the many great things I've noticed about our community is that whenever somebody's hurting in this community, or when they have a family member in the hospital, or they've lost a loved one, or they're in time of need, people reach out and they say things, and we read these kind of things, these posts, your inner prayers, or I will pray for you. Well, may I suggest that this is one of those times when we need to pray for each other. We can pray for peace in our community. We can pray for a greater feeling of love, caring, and understanding. We can pray for kindness and for the elimination of hate, meanness, and judgment towards one another. We can use social media for good and eliminate the negative, hateful, insensitive, and hurtful comments. Use it to be the good in this world that we need and in the good in this community. So the question is, who is the community? I would suggest everybody here tonight, as well as those who are not able to be here. For those of us who live in all of these towns around, we're not simply just the elected officials or the business owners or the school staff, but all of us make up this community. And our hope for tonight is for us to come together to make a difference. As you hear from a variety of people this evening, we hope your hearts will be touched, your minds will be enlightened, and that each of us will come to realize that we can make a difference. Not only can we make this Tbsdia, but how about making this and becoming TBCIA, the best community in Arizona? Or heck, why not think a bit bigger? And how about TBCITW, the best community in the world? It'll take work, but anything worth achieving does. Again, thank you so much for being here. The longest journey begins with the first step. And let's take that step together. May God bless you, and thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Brugman, and I am the Chief of Police for the Safford Police Department. I want to first let everyone know that Mayor Jason Couts and our council wanted to be here. We have a council meeting tonight that all the public notices are already gone out for, and regrettably they cannot attend. As most of you already know, Mayor Couts has taken a very proactive role, proactive stance on these matters. Like most of you, I chose to live here because I love the spirit of our community and the people here. There's a word that I'm going to be using a number of times tonight. I'm going to be talking about suicide. It's a word that I wish that I didn't have to utter now or any time in the future. The fact is, our area has experienced more than our share of suicides, in particular those that involve our youth. I take each and every one of these very personally. Every one of us will undoubtedly know someone who is struggling or has struggled so much that they don't know what to do. To this I say, quoting Martin Luther King Jr., we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. What I have seen is people who are so overwhelmed by the here and now, whether it be boyfriend, girlfriend problems, mean people, personal and professional failures or mistakes, that they cannot view their future. Nor do those contemplating suicide consider the damage that they will be doing to their survivors, the people who truly care for them and love them. This can be further aggravated by listening to the negative opinions of people, to include those from social media, who express negative views of them or the world in general, leaving some people with the attitude of questioning what is good, what good can come in their lives. As it said in the video, someone else's opinion of you does not have to be your reality. That is each and every one of our choice. In every person, I see opportunity, I see hope, and I see aspiration. No situation, no circumstance can ever, in my opinion, ever be stronger than the ability for anyone to recover from adversity, pain, or despair. There is always hope, and there is always something to live for. We have the responsibility to instill hope, to guide our children, our neighbors and friends, to find help when they need it. If your friend or acquaintance is struggling, you don't have to fix it on your own. We are in this together, and everyone working together with our focus on making positive change, no matter how small, means a happier community. We are quick to talk about the negatives. In this case, suicide and depression, causing some youth to turn to alcohol, drugs, or other destructive choices. I recommend that we be very open to talk about the positive also, to care and love one another, to be sincere with one another, to look after one another, speaking biblically, to be our brother's keepers. I suggest that we rise to the highest levels of care, to a point wherein we assume responsibility for each other, have and demonstrate the courage to defend those who have difficulty or the inability to do so for themselves. You see, it is our uniqueness, it is our individuality and our life experience that molds us into what we are. I hope that we can embrace that. I pray we challenge ourselves to delve into the deepest resources of our hearts to cultivate an atmosphere of understanding, of acceptance, of tolerance and compassion, knowing that we are all in this life together. And I ask all parents, grandparents, all family, to communicate with our children or friends that suicide is not a good answer, that it is simply not okay to commit suicide. Thank you, and God bless you.
Good evening. Thank you again for being here. My name is A.J. Taylor. I'm the Director of Instructional Services here for Safford Schools. And I think it's important that we recognize we have a lot going for us in this community. We have strong community leaders. We have some strong parents represented here in the audience. We have a lot of students and people who care, and you're going to get to hear from those students tonight. At the same time, the truth of the matter is, part of the reason we are here It's because some of the deep tragedies that we're experiencing in our community. These tragedies involve more than people taking their life. It's choices that can affect themselves and others and even the community in a negative way. I reiterate, we're here to do something about it. And to me, the key word is we. It's in that word we. We all make up the community. Safford Schools recognizes we are a part of the community and we do have our part. But at the same time, these issues are not just school issues or solely school issues. We're a community, and they're community issues. Mr. Van Winkle shared the vision that he's shared with us and that Safford Schools has been working on. And also you're going to hear some declarations from our school a little bit later from some of our other administrators. But at the same time, we recognize, and we all need to recognize, that not one group can carry this on our own. The answers are in this room with all of us. We believe that it's in the choices that we make, in the things that we believe and say, and what we put to action. Even before the recent tragedies had started coming upon us, Safford Schools had already decided that we wanted to become something better in Tbsdia. Again, I think it's important to say and to recognize that we believe that the answers are in this room. The answers are with us as educators, with you as parents, our students, you're going to hear from them tonight, our community leaders, and the community as a whole. We all have a part and should be willing to take a part. So we're challenging everyone, including ourselves. I'm pointing the finger at me first. We should all be doing that. What will my part be? When each one of us looks in the mirror, we should ask ourselves that. What's my part going to be? What's my part going to be today? What's my part of the community? One thing as community leaders and clergy got together, the slogan kept coming out. And it even rang true with the kids. And it's see something, say something, and do something. Our hope is that it gets to the point where we see this everywhere, that we're reminded and that it involves all of us, that if we see someone hurting, to reach out to them. If we say something, or if we see something, then say something, and getting them help if needed, and also if needed to do something about it. Parents, it could be something as simple as knowing what's on your child's phone, talking to them about what they're listening to, influencing their choices of what they're watching and what they're talking about on social media. I say that we owe it to them to know what's going on in their lives. I want to say that again. We owe it to our kids to know what's going on in their lives. And talking to our students, to our kids, some of the biggest influences that we see as school administrators has to do with social media. We've seen examples of it consuming our students, things that shouldn't be said are said, and then it gets out there in the whole world's, for the whole world to see. Students, I challenge you to agree to monitor your social media and how you use it. I challenge you to only post those things that are in line with making a positive difference and in line with the universal core value that people, that's kids and adults, have worth. As a community, I challenge you to do the same, and I'm pointing the finger at me again. Finger pointing, attacking type pages do not help our issues. I think they only breed discontent, and they don't help us create a healthy, positive community. I challenge you to not create, respond, or support them. Have the guts to do the right thing. Instead, choose to see something, say something, and do something that helps solve the problems and not make them worse. Let's watch out for each other and for our kids and for each other's kids. The last part of the challenge to you, our goal was to get an index card to everyone who walked in. Hopefully everybody got one. And the challenge is simple. Write something down that you'll commit to do to make a difference. at least one thing. It may be more than one thing, but at least one thing that's already been spoken that might be spoken later. Put that somewhere that you'll see it every day, maybe on the dash of your car, or maybe where you brush your teeth each morning, to remind us of what we need to do each day and what we're committing to. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jasmine Crisp. I'm speaking on behalf of Safford Middle School. Recently, there was a series of events that has happened in our community. It has affected us all greatly. But not just these kind of events affect us. Everything the community does impacts not just our students, but everybody. People choosing drugs or alcohol as an escape affects us. People committing suicide affects us. These and other bad decisions that the people in our community make affect us. On Thursday, September 21st, I went around asking students at the middle school how they felt about these decisions. This is what they had to say. You shouldn't have to do it, Carson Zimmerman, an 8th grader, said. Another student, Delaney Spivey, stated, "These are big problems that we aren't paying enough attention to. We need to pay more attention to home life than school life. What happens at home life affects school life greatly." I'm going to steal a statement from Mr. Van Winkle, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. In order to make a difference, you need to be the difference. I want to be that difference. Another student, Shalise Webb, had stated, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." I have suffered from someone close committing suicide. I know people that have gone through depression. It hurts to see someone you love go through that pain. That is why us middle schoolers need more people to become our family. We all need to live blue. Living blue means to be positive, be kind, and help one another. We have to be good citizens and even more a friend to one another. I'm going to share one last quote from Renee, a 7th grader who also goes to SMS. "It endangers you and the people around you. It hurts our community both physically and mentally." All of our students at Safford Middle School want to help make that change. To start off, we could smile. We could introduce ourselves to more people. We could make small talk to people that we don't usually talk to or hang out with. We can do this and so much more. I'm going to share a story from livin3.com. Once upon a time, a daughter complained to her father that her life was miserable and that she didn't know how she was going to make it. She was tired of fighting and struggling all the time. It seemed just as one problem was solved, another one soon followed. Her father, a chef, took her to the kitchen. He filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high fire. Once the 3 pots began to boil, he placed potatoes in one pot, eggs in the second pot, and ground coffee beans in the third pot. He then let them sit and boil, without saying a word to his daughter. The daughter groaned impatiently, waited, wondering what he was doing. After 20 minutes, he turned off the burners. He took the potatoes out of the pot and placed them in a bowl. He pulled the eggs out and placed them in a bowl. He then ladled out the coffee and placed it in a cup. Turning to her, he asked, "Daughter, what do you see?" "Potatoes, eggs, and coffees," she hastily replied. "Look closer," he said, and touched the potatoes. She did and noted that they were soft. He then asked her to take an egg and break it. After pulling off the shell, she observed that the hard-boiled egg had become harder. Finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. Its rich aroma brought a smile to her face. "Father, what does this mean?" she asked. He then explained that the potatoes, the eggs, and the coffee beans had faced the same adversity, the boiling water. However, each one reacted differently. The potato went in strong, hard, and unrelenting, but in boiling water it became soft and weak. The egg was fragile, with a thin outer shell protecting its liquid interior until it was put in boiling water. Then the inside of the egg became hard. However, the ground coffee beans were unique. After they were exposed to the boiling water, they changed the water and created something new. "Which are you?" he asked his daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean?" The moral of this is that in life, things will happen around us. Things happen to us. But the only thing that truly matters is what happens within us. We all need to come together as a school and as a community. We need to become one. Thank you.
Dear friends and neighbors, tonight I speak to you not only as the principal of one of our schools, but as a neighbor and friend who has been raised in this community like many of you. As an adult, my wife and I again chose to return to this community of Safford to raise our children. We truly love this area in this valley. As I have reflected upon recent events and how they are affecting each of us, many thoughts have come to my mind. And I believe all of us have taken some time to do the same thing. I'd like to share with you some of those thoughts. During the course of this evening, you may have already had thoughts of your own about what it is that you could do. And I join in with others in inviting you to ask yourself that question now, knowing that each of us can receive inspiration on how to serve our fellow man. Tonight should not and realistically cannot be a night where we have immediate solutions, but rather a time we can all begin to have these conversations. As I pondered this, the thought pressed against my mind, what can one person do? The answer is an infinite amount of good. For decades, the youth group of my church has taken an evening in the fall to go to the Wall, or the new road which overlooks the Gila Valley from a point on Mount Graham. Every year, a campfire is lit for light and warmth, as well as atmosphere, and young people share their feelings about their faith and their commitment to that faith. Donuts and hot chocolate are served afterwards around the fire. One particular year, I was late coming up to that gathering. I could tell, however, that they were already underway because I could see the bonfire clear from here in Safford. This at first surprised me, as it must have surprised the fire department because they received multiple calls from concerned community members. I was reminded, however, in that instance, of a truth. And the truth is that a relatively small amount of light can be seen from a great distance and by many individuals. Each of us has an inner light. That light doesn't necessarily originate from us, but comes from God and works through us. As we gather and then share that light, we can be seen by many, especially in a situation where darkness may abound. We know that light overrides darkness, and that darkness is just the absence of light and is not anything in and of itself. All life, and especially humans, are drawn to light for guidance, clarity, sight, direction, warmth, comfort, and life itself. How well is our light shining? What can each of us do to increase our ability to reflect light for the benefit of others as well as for ourselves? What difference does it already make in our world and in our community? And can we imagine what can happen if more of us let that light shine through us? That does not mean that we shine that light in an offensive or a divisive way. We have all, I'm sure, had a bright light abruptly shone into our eyes, which has caused us to discomfort, blindness, and even a degree of pain. It does not mean that we should all shine in the same way. We should shine distinctly so that our personal talents and abilities are enhanced to reach the one. Regardless of our abilities or talents, however we have, each one of us can do something. I make reference to a parable in the Bible. In an attempt to confound Jesus Christ, he was asked what the greatest commandment was. And to that he responded that we should love God and that we should love our neighbor. The follow-up question was asked, "Who is my neighbor?" And I quote, "And Jesus answering said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus unto him, Go and do thou likewise." We do not need to hold a title or a specific office to do something. The priest and the Levite held ecclesiastical and political offices in their time and could have and should have stopped to help the man who had been robbed. They may have had great resources at their disposal, yet they passed on the other side of the road, perhaps not to be seen or to see anything. We don't know. Samaritans, however, were politically, racially, and religiously considered beneath the Jewish people and were treated as such. The Samaritan, according to the thought of the world, would be justified in not stopping to help, yet he did. I am sure that he felt at a little bit of a loss on how to help, yet he helped. He did what he could. It was not convenient or even socially acceptable for him to rescue the man, but he did it anyway, and a life was saved. As we all find ourselves traveling down life's road, do we take the time to rescue a weary traveler or one who has fallen among thieves? Are we looking for those who are downtrodden or left along the wayside? Do we stand for and speak for what is right wherever we may be with love and compassion, even when it may not be socially acceptable? Do we let the light of Christ shine through us to radiate in the hearts of others so that they feel faith, hope, and love? So they feel connected, even if just for that moment? Do we exercise our power for good to dispel the darkness and to provide comfort, direction, and even life? We do not need to wait for the next organization, program, or movement to begin. As much good as they can do, and they do great good, they are no substitute for the daily acts of kindness and love that can be done by ordinary people like you and me in authentic ways every day of our lives. We may feel like we are acting alone when in reality, others see us and rally to the cause. The Ursi family had just moved to Florida and had decided to spend the day at the beach. Their 2 sons went out on their boogie boards to play in the waves when they were caught in a rip current, preventing them from returning to shore. The family went out to the rescue, only to find themselves caught in the same rip current. As a result, there were 10 people fighting for their lives who could not break free. There was no lifeguard. Rescue workers had limited gear opted to wait for a boat. Time was crucial. Nobody knows who started it, but people started calling out to strangers on the beach to form a human chain. At first there were 5, then 15, and finally some 80 people linked arms, hands, and or legs to extend the 100 yards into the ocean to rescue the 10 individuals. Watching what was happening, Jessica and Derek Simmons, both experienced swimmers, grabbed boogie boards, swam along the chain, and began to ferry each struggling swimmer in, where they were passed back to shore. When it was over, people on the beach cheered and applauded. Each person took courage and exercised faith to become involved in the way that they could. Each rescuer brought specific talents, perspectives, and abilities with them that ultimately played a part in the rescue of each individual. Not surprisingly, lasting relationships were created that day. It is my conviction that as we each seek the light and to share the light, that we will attract those who also seek to do the same. We will find courage to act, to speak, and to serve in love and compassion, bringing hope to the lives of others, to each of us, to me. May we each receive that inspiration to direct us in our efforts is my prayer. Thank you, and may the Lord continue to bless our special community.
Chest and let it in. Just let the love, love, love begin. Everybody, everybody wants to love. Everybody, everybody wants to be loved. Oh, oh, oh. Everybody, everybody wants to love. Everybody, everybody wants to be loved. Oh, everybody wants to love. Everybody, everybody wants to be loved. Oh, oh, oh. Just let the love, love, love begin. Everybody, everybody wants to love. Everybody, everybody wants to be loved. Oh, oh, oh. Just let the love, love, love begin. Everybody knows the love. Everybody holds the love. Everybody falls for love. Everybody feels the love. Everybody steals the love. Everybody heals with love. Oh, everybody. Oh, everybody. Oh, everybody. God bless you.
Before I get started, let's thank Lark Peterson, Chip Cheney, Belinda Britt, Lori Gowan, Mark Leal, Mike Wilson, and Elsie Burke. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Okay, my name's Lance Veit. First of all, I'm a parent and an agriculture education teacher for Safford Unified School District, Tbsdia. This is important for me tonight because I grew up a Dallas fan, and I'm missing the game tonight because I'm here visiting with all of you. Mrs. Brady, though, has her, I hate to call you out, but she just gave me an update. The score is 7-7, so we'll go from there. Okay? We're keeping track of things as we go. But they wanted me to talk tonight the perception as a teacher and as a parent. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the parent side first, and then we'll talk about the teacher perception. Okay, the childhood of today's youth is not our childhood. Those of you that are older than 21, okay? It's not the same. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Because some of our young people have kids in elementary grades that are not that old either, and their childhood wasn't the same as ours. Some of you guys can relate to me. Cell phones versus dinosaurs. Anybody know what a dinosaur is? I had a rotary phone with a 40-foot cord that I used to talk to my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, and I had to hide in every place in the house I could possibly find. Okay? Some of you remember those. Smartphones today, everybody has them. If you don't know how to use one, talk to a kindergartner. They'll teach you how. Okay? Because these kids nowadays, it's unbelievable. They know exactly how to use them. I have an 8th grader. I have a college student. I have a high school student. My 8th grader teaches my college student how to use his phone. It happens. If you don't know how to use one, find a kid. They'll teach you how. Okay? We need but as adults and as parents and as the older students, we need to monitor, teach our young people the appropriate way to use these devices to the best of their abilities. I see it too often as a teacher. These devices are not being used correctly at all. But on the flip side, as a teacher, those students that have me, this is the first year that we use them a lot because they're so convenient. I call it the umbilical cord to every parent because you know exactly where they're at, and everything that they do if you monitor those. My next one is the difference between peer pressuring through social media and face-to-face interactions. When I was a kid, if I had a problem with somebody, I would say something to their face and either get my butt whipped or have an altercation, and we'd be done and over with, and there would be nothing to come back. It's over. Now, with social media through peer pressuring, it goes on and on and on. As parents, we need to inspect phones. We need to inspect computers to help alleviate these possible bullying and peer pressuring. I tell my kids at home, I'm not your best friend, I'm your parent. We have to be parents. We have to make sure that we monitor everything that they do. High school kids, or high school students right now are sitting there in their seats going, I don't like this guy. Okay, I know my students, my kids at home at times don't like this guy. But that's okay, we're parents. We want to make sure that they're successful. Adult decisions versus childhood experiences. As a kid, all I worried about was when I was going to go hunting, when I was going to go fishing, what time's dinner. That's what I worried about. Now, these kids are making adult decisions at a very, very young age. I mean, real young. It'll scare you. An incident happened about a month and a half ago, right when school started. A student, an 8th grader, and I'm not going to name any names, an 8th grader had an adult decision that had to be made. 11:30 at night, he was texting, Snapchatting, doing that, whatever they do on their devices. And there was an issue that came up about suicide. That young person called 911 with no parent supervision, no advice from a parent. We didn't have to make those decisions when we were kids. These kids now are making those decisions. They're making the same decisions that you and I are making. My suggestion is this: call 911. If they don't like you tomorrow, too bad. That's what my suggestion would be to any young person. Now, a couple of things on the teacher perspective. Our kids today are far more knowledgeable in the use of technology than we ever were. Examples of this are social media and access to more information faster than ever before. Our students are on more social media sites than most adults. If you don't believe me, check your kid's phone. I guarantee it. So, if you want to learn how to be connected, please visit with these young people. I guarantee you, my kids tell me all the time, I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to do it. I do not have a Facebook account. I've told my wife from day one, I do not like Facebook. I think it's a downfall of our society. Because people are man enough to tell somebody to their face what they can put on their phone. I have a problem with that. but I'm pretty straightforward. Just ask my students. Okay? One thing that we need to be concerned about is how they're using these sites. We need to serve as examples in using these sites correctly. If we think about it, a student in early elementary grades has the same access to information that we do as adults. This should scare us to death. It really should. Because a second grader has the same information on the web as we have right now. That's frightening. So as parents and teachers, everybody has to step up together to monitor these things. Our community has a problem. If you wouldn't feel comfortable saying to someone's face, then you shouldn't post it online. I went about this before. This is where a lot of our problems run into our school systems. We need to be the example to our youth, all of us. So all of you that are in high school at this age, or at this point, please think about what you put on there. Because you never know what's going to happen with it. Okay? Opportunities. Let's talk about the positive now. Mr. Van Winkle put up on the screen earlier, Tbsdia. It is. I've been here 26 years. Not by chance. Opportunities. The youth of today have more opportunities to be involved in and a wider array of opportunities than ever before. We need to encourage all youth to become involved in something they are interested in to make a positive difference in their lives. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to travel with over 150 students across this great nation. This is a positive example of how students that want to pursue excellence with teachers, volunteers, and community members to compete at a high level. This brings me to my point. Every person sitting in this place tonight has a positive talent. I want you to share that talent with somebody. I don't care if it's a person sitting next to you tonight. I don't care if it's next week at the county fair. I don't care if it's at a volleyball game. I don't care where it's at. Share your positive talents with anybody and everybody. We need to do this, and we need to do this together. And it starts tonight. Going back to what I heard on the radio, I was on a tractor all weekend long. See something, say something, do something. Thank you for this opportunity, and God bless the Gila Valley.
And yes, it's still 7-7. I'm Reverend Sherry Brady, and I'm chair of the Gila Valley Ministerial Association. I'm sure that many of us are thinking right now, I want to be that person that helps my friends that are grieving their lost friends or their classmates or even their children. I want to encourage my peers so that our community doesn't have to go through this again. But I don't know how to do it or even what to do. So often as well-meaning friends and co-workers and loved ones, we don't know what to say to a person that has just experienced a loss, so we say nothing at all. The mourners then often feel abandoned by their friends in the midst of their loss because of our being silent. There is good news, though. It's that we do have the ability to be there for our friends and our family and community during a time of loss. But first, it may surprise you to know that some of the very well-meaning things that we say, the very recognizable statements that many of us say, are often not that helpful. Grief is about a broken heart, but yet we often speak to people through their intellect rather than to their hearts. Many of these recognizable statements are cliches that just need to be avoided. I'm not going to mention every single one, but I'm going to name some of the ones that you probably have been told. time heals all wounds. Truth is, time doesn't heal all wounds, but healing does take time. And to go along with that one, it's time to put it behind you. That is actually spoken many times to children and to teens by adults. There is no timeline for grief. This coming April, my husband and I it will be 3 years that we lost our 20-month-old grandson in an accidental drowning, and it still hurts. There's be strong, and that goes along with don't cry. Really? All that does is create guilt for letting out our deepest emotions. And then there's he or she is in a better place. To the grievers, that better place is for their loved one to be with them right now. My daughter was even told that she was selfish for wanting to have her boy back. Next is, I know how you feel. No, you don't. This is the worst thing that you could say to a grieving person, and please do not say that to he or she. Your story isn't their story, and frankly, they don't care and they don't want to hear about it. We can never really know how someone feels, let alone a grieving person. And finally, this is the one that my daughter really wanted me to tell people because she was told it to her and it just ate her up. It's God's will. Sorry, folks, that's really bad theology. That just makes us angry at God, and this statement does not help in any positive way in the grieving process. A good God does not take someone because God wants them in heaven more than God wants them with you. So now you may be asking, well, Sherry, I thought you were going to say something that we could do. Look at the picture up there. There are two visible ways that people are responding to this young lady. One guy is holding the girl and he's letting her cry. And the other one is just touching her. I know it's a still picture, but no one's talking. The other person is, in fact, we only see the hand and he's just touching her. They are just being. The two are letting out raw emotions, and that person who we only see his hand is silent. They are offering each other help, and in a quiet way. They're just being there for each other. They aren't pretending to be professionals or even know-it-alls. In times like this, the question that we are really faced with then is how do we respond when we are faced with tragedies such as what has been happening in our community? And blaming them on others is just a cop-out. Confronting them and responding to them with compassion is not, and it is exactly the path that Jesus lays out for us. God does not ask us to explain tragedies. Therefore, we aren't to give trite answers like the ones that I mentioned earlier. Instead, we're to be present in helpful and supportive ways to those who are suffering. It's a scene like this that we see God's answer to tragedy and God's present with us in our time of pain and suffering. Just like the teacher sang, everyone wants to love and to be loved. When we can show that, we don't have to say anything.
All right, good evening. I'm Tori Lightsky. I am the principal at Safford High School. And no matter how many times I do this and how many times this light is in my face, it's still very overwhelming, and especially in a topic, if you will, in a forum such as this. I'm overwhelmed by and humbled by how many of you are here tonight, and I know that we're all here for the same reason. We're all searching, reaching, looking for something that we can do, that we can be a part of, what our place in all of this is. You know, and as Ken brought up, and AJ brought up, and we're touching on right now, the SUSD administrative team, we have been meeting for the past several weeks, as was mentioned earlier, to become Tbsdia. We've committed ourselves to create a declaration of what we stand for as a team, a unified team. This is what we're sharing with you all tonight, so you're able to get an understanding of where we are going as a district. Okay, this is our declaration of the SUSD administrative team. At Safford Schools, everybody matters. We are committed to be and to produce a community of respect, trust, and service. We are committed to promoting a safe place to risk, trust in one another, and a sense of family. We are committed as a team to engage in fun and excitement as we strive for success. We realize we're not totally there yet, but I guarantee you if anybody came and walked the halls, and I'm going to speak selfishly, and if any of you walked into the halls of Safford High School, you would see so many great things. I know what we hear are the things that are the negatives, the downers. But I tell my administrative team, I tell my husband, poor thing, every night how fortunate I am in the things that I see. And it is so important to me to get out into the halls and see our kids each day and to give them high fives and to tell them I love you. And that's the part that I want to move forward with. I want to share with you all the hope that I see, the hope that I wish that you all would see. And as you're here tonight, there's an obvious reason you're making a commitment. And I hope that with that commitment, you're making it to our kids first. You're making a commitment to our teachers. You're making the commitment to fellow parents. You're making the commitment to school leaders, to our community leaders, to our neighbors. And ultimately, we're all making the commitment to one another. Because after all, as we know, the old adage rings true, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, and as Maya Angelou, who's an American author, poet, self-described Renaissance woman, and one of my favorite visionaries wrote, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." And I'm telling you right now, and I know you're all telling me and you're telling the rest of us up here, it's time to do better. Lance already mentioned it. AJ touched on it as well. We know our kids aren't growing up in the times that you and I did. Lance, I totally am with you on the phone. I remember having that old phone and hiding in the corners, and then I think by the time I got to a senior, we got that thing called the wireless one that had the pull up the phone and go hide in the corners. I think we as parents, I know me as a teacher, a longtime teacher and administrator now, I've said to kids, you just got to get over it. Shame on me. Shame on me for thinking that, because as I've been listening to our kids here lately, and I guess it was a long enough time ago that I'm forgetting it because I've lived life as an adult for a lot longer than I was a teenager. The problems that I faced then were the biggest problems that I had faced in my life. However, now, many years down the road, I laugh and go, dang, that was nothing. So I think I know I need to do better. I need to hear what our kids are saying. I need to listen to what they're saying, and I really need to not brush it off. Are we doing better? Or are we just following through with how we were brought up? I want you to think about that, because I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in when I was young, my father was killed, and so my grandparents kind of stepped in and helped my mama raise my brother and me up. And I would always laugh, my brother, who's 3 years older than me, is a big, tall guy, and we used to make fun of my grandfather because he'd always come in and make the comments, and kids these days. And we'd laugh and couldn't understand what his old school ways were and what he was even talking about. And then I'm wondering, am I here now? Am I my grandpa? Am I walking away, kicking the dirt and saying, oh, kids these days? Is that something that we're all guilty of? I think so, to an extent. Are we doing better? Are we pushing it aside because, look, hey, we made it out of childhood okay? Or worse, are we not paying enough attention because we're too busy and caught up in our own lives and our own Facebook accounts and our own this and that and the other and the own problems that we all have, because many of us we're all working. Yes, we've experienced heartbreak, and we're lost. You know, lately, I think probably because this is my first year in the principal role, and I was kind of stuck behind the scenes in the last few years being the assistant principal, the one that dealt with all the doom and gloom, the one that got to see the negative a lot. So I've been relating a lot to the saying, to the phrase, if you always do what you've always done, then you'll continue to get what you've always gotten. You know, when I say that, we all know what's happening here. This is the attitude, and this attitude will continue if we don't make it a point, if we don't make our children our number one, our first commitment, the place where our kids need us to be. So now we have two choices. Continue to do what we've always done, or, which actually will likely result in more destructive decisions, or stop making excuses and we work together, we come together with the rest of the village to raise our kids. Allow others to help us when we don't know what to do. And I think right now is one of those times we don't know what to do. But we know doing nothing is not it. So I'm going to choose hope for our kids. I'm going to choose hope for our community. I'm going to choose to take back control with working with one another. So you look at our 8 pillars, and hope actually is the root of these 8 pillars. And I choose hope. Hope in knowing that we all want the same results, so we will choose differently when adversity rears its ugly head. Life's unpredictable, hard, and quite notorious at times. Things get out of hand and beyond our control. And we know that it's very hard. I know it's very hard keeping up with the interfaith during the most of critical times. But those who never abandon hope actually make it until the end. Hope is optimism. Hope replaces the sufferings of the present. It's an inspiration to live life the best way we can. We commit to hope by facing our fears, by showing courage, and enduring when life throws us curveballs. I hope we all make this commitment together. And as I wrap up, I would like to leave you with this quote from Canadian politician Jack Layton. My friends, love is better than anger. Hope is better than fear. Optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world. So I'd like you all to join us and embrace the foundation that we're laying out before you. Okay. So thank you all for your attention. And now the part that I'm very excited for you all to see, because this is the reason why I do what I do. I love these kids. I taught elementary school for many, many years. I think probably because I was scared of the high school kids. And then I got there, and then I realized, wow, I've been missing my calling my whole life. I love these kids. I love the fact that I can look at them, hug them, and be so very proud of them. So our final three speakers are a group of kids that came to Mrs. Corona and me a couple of weeks ago. They came to us desperate for answers, desperate for where to go next, the what now. And we discovered that throughout all of this, they are our answer, along with so many other kids who have come forth and written us letters and begged for something to be a part of. So I appreciate these three and the manner in which they have chosen to tackle our issues. I admire their courage, so please give them a very warm welcome.
Hi, I'm Chris Lujan, and I'm a student at Safford High School.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah Armijo, and I'm a student at Safford High School.
Hello, my name is Lazaro Lumbio, and I'm a senior at Safford High School. We are here to introduce you all to GRIT. GRIT is a program that we started alongside the administration of Safford Unified Schools. The thoughts behind GRIT were derived from Safford High School's former SAD club. SAD stands for Students Against Destructive Decisions. The problem was, as we began discussing our mission, we came to the conclusion that SAD, it didn't portray the image of our program correctly. We desired to center our focus around love, trust, and support. Thus, we came up with GRIT. Great role models initiating togetherness. We really wanted to come up with a name that let people know what we intend to do. Show passions for all aspects of life, the long-term life. So this is why we stand before you all now, to ask you all to commit and decide to say no more. No more to drugs. No more to alcohol. No more to bullying. No more to sexting. No more to destructive decisions. This is when we decide that being a bystander, it's no longer okay. Be a part of something great, they said. Be a part of the difference, they said. So community, I ask you all, be a part of GRIT.
One of our first pillars is togetherness. Noun, the state of being close to another person or other people. To us, togetherness means a lot, because wanting to be a part of a group is a human nature. We need to feel like we belong and we're accepted. Togetherness is being a part of a puzzle, whether it is with your family, close friends, or even the community. We matter to the whole puzzle. Coming together as one can change the community. Second pillar, trust. Noun, firm belief in the reliability, trust, ability, and strength of someone or something. Trust in life among family, friends, community. Trust is an important key to life. You should always trust someone that you can talk to at any hour of the day, someone who can be there to help and listen and guide you down the right path. Look for someone you can trust, someone you can turn to for something as little as homework, sports, or a life situation, whatever. Better yet, be the person whom someone can trust. Respect. Noun, a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something shown by their abilities, qualities, and achievements. Respect plays a large part in everyone's life. You should always treat people the way you expect to be treated. Respect for one another reduces the problems that people have with another. Respect is allowing people to be who they are, having their own differences, and that is okay.
Our next pillar is love, which is a noun, an intense feeling of deep affection. Love is being humane to one another, being there for someone who needs a friend, advice, or just someone to listen to them. Love is treating someone with respect, kindness, and trying to bring happiness to someone. Love is being able to touch someone's heart enough for them to spread the love. The next pillar is communication, which is also a noun. The successful conveying of sharing of ideas or feelings. Communication is not just talking to others, but also listening to others and helping them find a solution to a problem. Sometimes all people need are a pair of listening ears. Communication is not only listening, but truly understanding what someone is going through. Trying to relate to them might help because they will feel like you heard them, listened to them, and understood them. Our last pillar is appreciation, which is also a noun. The recognition and enjoyment of the good qualities of someone or something. There are so many things to be grateful for, but being grateful for everyone around you is probably the biggest one. Appreciate what people you have and what people have done for you. Sometimes we lose sight of those people, so hug them close, keep them close, and tell them you love them.
You know, I think it's crazy how many of us have been affected or have known someone that has been affected by destructive decisions. I find myself pondering, why? Why were these decisions made? Why was it them? Why wasn't it me? And I've come to the conclusion, although it might be harsh, to not allow these things to control or affect me. Try to make every day the best day. And although sometimes this plan might not work, I know it happens to all of us where we find ourselves at the lowest of our lows, debating or not what turn is the right turn to take. I realize that I only have two choices, the right choice and the wrong choice. Once you get past yourself and these questions you keep asking yourself, you might come to the realization that helping others and being there for the ones around you is far more important. I can't explain how much it hurt when I received the news that my dad passed from suicide, or worse, my best friend and brother. And after those long nights of tears, I knew there was only one thing I could do. Take the right turn on the trail. Be there for the ones that needed me. Show strength in times of weakness, and comfort those who don't yet have the will or power to be there for themselves. Be there for those who are in need. Don't stand by until the last cry is cried. Show grit when it comes to family. This doesn't mean show love, care for a week, or care for a year. It means show love day in and day out until time is worn out. If you see something, say something, do something.